There is a growing sense in the world today that something is shifting, something is accelerating, something we cannot quite explain but deeply feel. The headlines change every hour, alliances are forming and breaking, tensions are rising in places that have always been sensitive, and at the very center of it all stands a city unlike any other on earth, Jerusalem. This city, small in size but enormous in significance, has always been at the crossroads of history, faith, and conflict. And now, once again, it is at the center of a conversation that is no longer just political or geographical, but deeply prophetic. For thousands of years, Jerusalem has been more than a location. It has been a symbol, a promise, a battleground of ideas and beliefs. Nations have fought over it, empires have risen and fallen around it, and yet it remains. But what is truly astonishing is not just its survival, but the way it continues to align with ancient words spoken long before modern borders, long before global media, long before the current world order. Words that described a time when Jerusalem would become a burden to all nations, a focal point of global tension, a city that would draw the attention of the entire world. And look around today, is that not exactly what we are witnessing? Every decision concerning Jerusalem seems to echo across continents. Every move made in or around it sparks international debate. It is no longer just a regional issue, it is global. The question we must ask ourselves is not whether Jerusalem is important, but why it holds such a central place in the unfolding of events in our time. There's a pattern that is becoming increasingly clear. The world is not moving randomly. There is direction, there is alignment, and there is an urgency that feels different from anything we have seen before. Conflicts that once seemed distant are now interconnected. Political decisions are no longer isolated, they are part of a larger picture. And at the center of that picture is a timeline that many have ignored, misunderstood, or dismissed. What makes this moment so unique is the convergence of multiple factors. Technology has advanced to a point where information travels instantly, shaping opinions and influencing decisions in real time. Political landscapes are shifting rapidly, with alliances forming in ways that would have been unimaginable just decades ago. Economies are unstable. Societies are divided. And there is a growing sense of uncertainty about the future. Yet, in the midst of all this chaos, there is a consistent thread. Jerusalem remains at the heart of it all. There is something deeply unsettling about how precisely current events seem to mirror ancient warnings. These were not vague predictions. They were specific, detailed, and remarkably aligned with what we are seeing today. The idea that a single city could become the focal point of global attention, that it would be contested, divided, and yet central to the destiny of nations, this was spoken long before it became a reality. And now, here we are. The question that arises is not just about what is happening, but about timing. Why now? Why are we seeing such rapid developments? Why does it feel like events are accelerating? It is as if the world is being drawn into a sequence of moments that are leading somewhere, and that destination is closer than many realize. There is a tendency to dismiss these ideas as exaggerated or alarmist. After all, the world has always faced challenges. There have always been wars, conflicts, and uncertainties. But what sets this moment apart is not just the presence of these issues, but their intensity, their frequency, and their interconnectedness. It is not one event, but a series of events, all pointing in the same direction. Consider the increasing focus on peace agreements, negotiations, and attempts to resolve long-standing conflicts. On the surface, these efforts appear positive, even necessary. But beneath that surface lies a deeper question. Are these solutions addressing the root of the problem, or are they setting the stage for something else? History has shown that not all agreements lead to lasting peace. Some create temporary stability while paving the way for greater challenges ahead. Jerusalem is often at the center of these discussions. Who controls it? Who governs it? Who has the right to claim it? These are not just political questions, they are deeply spiritual and historical. And every attempt to redefine its status seems to ignite further tension rather than resolve it. There is also a growing movement to internationalize the issue of Jerusalem, to bring it under broader global oversight. While this may seem like a logical step in resolving disputes, it also raises significant concerns. When the world begins to focus collectively on one city, when decisions about it are no longer made locally but globally, it signals a shift that cannot be ignored. At the same time, we are witnessing a rise in global instability. Conflicts are no longer isolated, they are interconnected. Economic crises in one region affect markets worldwide. Political decisions in one country influence the stability of others. There is a sense that the world is becoming more unified, not necessarily in harmony, but in shared tension. And in the midst of this, there is a growing urgency. Events that once took years to unfold are now happening in months, even weeks. Decisions are made quickly, sometimes without full understanding of their consequences. There is a pressure, a momentum that seems to be pushing the world forward at an unprecedented pace. This brings us back to the central question, are we running out of time? It is a question that demands serious consideration, not out of fear, but out of awareness. If the patterns we are seeing are indeed aligning with something greater, then ignoring them is not an option. Understanding them becomes essential. There is also a personal dimension to all of this. It is easy to view these events as distant, as something happening out there. But the reality is that global changes have local impacts. Decisions made on the world stage affect everyday lives. And if the trajectory we are on continues, those effects will only become more pronounced. What does it mean to live in such a time? It means being aware, being informed, and being prepared. Not in a way that leads to panic, but in a way that leads to clarity. It means recognizing that history is not just something we study, it is something we are living. There is a tendency to focus on the negative aspects of these developments, to see only the conflict, the instability, the uncertainty. But there is also another perspective. Moments of great change often bring opportunities for reflection, for realignment, for understanding what truly matters. Jerusalem, in many ways, represents more than just a physical location. It represents a focal point of purpose, a reminder that history is moving towards something. The question is whether we are paying attention. As we look at the world today, it is clear that we are not in a period of stability. We are in a period of transition. And transitions are often uncomfortable, unpredictable, and challenging. But they are also necessary for movement, for progress, for the unfolding of what comes next. The events surrounding Jerusalem are not isolated incidents. They are part of a larger narrative, one that has been unfolding for generations. And now, it appears to be reaching a stage that is more visible, more intense, and more significant than ever before. There is a sense that we are approaching a turning point, a moment where decisions will have lasting consequences, a moment where the direction we choose will shape the future in profound ways. And so we return to the question, are we out of time? Perhaps the better question is, how are we using the time we have? Because time, regardless of how much or how little remains, is a resource that must be used wisely. It is not just about predicting what will happen next, but about understanding what is happening now. Jerusalem stands as a reminder that history is not random, that events, no matter how chaotic they may seem, are part of a larger picture. And that picture is becoming clearer with each passing day. The challenge is not just to observe, but to understand, not just to react, but to respond with insight and awareness. Because in times like these, clarity is more valuable than ever. As the world continues to watch Jerusalem, as tensions rise and decisions are made, one thing is certain: we are living in a moment that will be remembered, a moment that will be studied, analyzed, and discussed for generations to come. The question is, when that time comes, what will it be said about us? That we ignored the signs? That we dismissed the patterns? Or that we recognized the moment for what it was and chose to respond with wisdom and understanding? There is no doubt that the days ahead will bring challenges, but they will also bring opportunities. Opportunities to learn, to grow, and to see the world with greater clarity. Jerusalem is not just a city, it is a signal that something significant is unfolding. A signal that the world is moving toward a moment that cannot be ignored. And whether we are ready or not, that moment is coming. The only question that remains is how we will face it. And as we look even deeper into the unfolding reality, there is an unmistakable sense that the stage is being set with extraordinary precision. The alignment of nations, the rhetoric of leaders, the shifting priorities of global institutions, none of it feels accidental. There is a rhythm to it, almost like a script that is moving forward scene by scene, drawing the attention of the entire world back to a single focal point. What is especially striking is how narratives are being shaped. The language surrounding Jerusalem is changing. It is no longer just about history or religion. It is about control, identity, and future sovereignty. The conversation has expanded beyond regional disputes and into a broader global framework, where decisions about this one city are increasingly seen as decisions that affect international stability. This shift in narrative is not happening in isolation. Media coverage, diplomatic discussions, and public opinion are all being influenced in ways that amplify the significance of Jerusalem. The more it is discussed, the more it becomes central to global consciousness. And the more central it becomes, the more pressure builds around it. Pressure in itself is not new. Jerusalem has always been under pressure. But what we are witnessing now is different in scale and intensity. The involvement of multiple global powers, each with their own interests and agendas, creates a complex web of interactions that can change rapidly. A single decision, a single statement, can trigger reactions across continents. There is also a noticeable increase in urgency among world leaders. Meetings are happening more frequently, statements are becoming more direct, and the language used is more definitive. There is less hesitation, less ambiguity. It is as if there is an awareness that time is not as abundant as it once seemed. And yet, despite all the activity, there is no clear resolution in sight. Efforts to bring lasting peace continue to face obstacles. Agreements are proposed, debated, and sometimes even signed, but they often fall short of addressing the deeper issues. This creates a cycle of hope and disappointment, progress and setback. In the midst of this cycle, the role of Jerusalem becomes even more pronounced. It is not just a participant in these events, it is the centerpiece. Every proposal, every negotiation, every conflict seems to circle back to it. It is as if the world cannot move forward without addressing what Jerusalem represents. But what does it truly represent? Beyond politics and geography, it represents a convergence of history, faith, and destiny. It is a place where past promises intersect with present realities and future expectations. And this convergence creates a tension that cannot easily be resolved. There is also a spiritual dimension that cannot be ignored. While many discussions focus on political and strategic aspects, there is an underlying layer that goes deeper. For countless people around the world, Jerusalem is not just a city, it is a symbol of something sacred, something eternal. This adds another level of complexity to the situation. Because decisions are not just about land or governance, but about deeply held beliefs. As this complexity increases, so does the potential for misunderstanding. Different perspectives, different interpretations, and different priorities can lead to conflicting approaches. What one group sees as a solution, another may see as a threat. And in such an environment, finding common ground becomes increasingly difficult. At the same time, technological advancements are accelerating the spread of information. News travels instantly, opinions are formed quickly, and reactions are immediate. This creates a dynamic where events can escalate rapidly, sometimes before there is time to fully understand them. The speed at which information moves adds another layer of intensity to an already complex situation. There is also a growing sense of unpredictability. Traditional patterns are shifting, alliances are evolving, and unexpected developments are becoming more common. What once seemed stable is now uncertain. And in this environment, the significance of Jerusalem becomes even more pronounced, because it remains a constant in a rapidly changing world. This constancy is both a stabilizing factor and a source of tension. On one hand, it provides a reference point, something that remains central despite changing circumstances. On the other hand, it becomes a focal point for unresolved issues, drawing attention and pressure from all sides. As we continue to observe these developments, it becomes clear that we are not just witnessing isolated events. We are witnessing a convergence. Multiple factors, each significant on their own, are coming together in a way that amplifies their impact. And at the center of this convergence is Jerusalem. There is also an increasing awareness among individuals, not just leaders and institutions. People around the world are paying attention, asking questions, seeking to understand what is happening and why. This awareness is significant because it reflects a shift from passive observation to active engagement. With this engagement comes a responsibility. Understanding the implications of these events requires more than just surface-level information. It requires careful consideration, thoughtful analysis, and a willingness to look beyond immediate headlines. There is also a need to recognize the broader context. While Jerusalem is central, it is part of a larger global landscape. Economic challenges, social changes, environmental concerns, all of these factors interact with the events surrounding Jerusalem. They influence decisions, shape perspectives, and contribute to the overall trajectory. In this interconnected world, no event exists in isolation. Everything is linked, and this interconnectedness means that developments in one area can have far-reaching consequences in others. The situation in Jerusalem is not just about one city. It is about how that city fits into a global network of relationships and influences. As this network becomes more complex, the potential for both conflict and cooperation increases. There are opportunities for dialogue, for understanding, for finding common ground. But there are also risks of escalation, misunderstanding, and division. The balance between these possibilities is delicate. It requires careful navigation, thoughtful leadership, and a commitment to seeking solutions that go beyond immediate interests. And yet, achieving this balance is increasingly challenging in a world that is moving at such a rapid pace. There is also the question of perspective. How we view these events shapes how we respond to them. If we see them as random or insignificant, we may overlook their importance. But if we recognize their potential significance, we are more likely to approach them with the attention they deserve. This does not mean adopting a mindset of fear or anxiety. Rather, it means cultivating awareness and understanding. It means being attentive to the patterns, the shifts, the signals that indicate where things may be heading. Jerusalem, in this sense, serves as a lens through which we can view broader developments. By observing what happens there, we gain insight into larger trends and dynamics. It becomes a point of reference for understanding the direction in which the world is moving. And as we continue to watch, to listen, to analyze, one thing becomes increasingly clear: the pace is not slowing down. If anything, it is accelerating. Events are unfolding more quickly, decisions are being made more rapidly, and the margin for error is becoming smaller. This acceleration brings both urgency and opportunity. Urgency, because there is less time to react, to adjust, to respond. Opportunity, because moments of rapid change can also be moments of significant transformation. The key is how we navigate this acceleration. Whether we allow ourselves to be overwhelmed by it, or whether we choose to engage with it thoughtfully and intentionally. There is also the question of readiness. Are we prepared for what lies ahead? Not just in terms of external circumstances, but in terms of understanding, awareness, and perspective. Preparation is not about predicting every detail, but about being equipped to respond to whatever comes. As the world continues to focus on Jerusalem, as discussions intensify and decisions are made, the importance of clarity becomes even more evident. Clarity in understanding the issues, clarity in recognizing the implications, and clarity in determining how to respond. This clarity does not come easily. It requires effort, attention, and a willingness to look beyond immediate appearances. But it is essential, especially in times of complexity and change. And so, the unfolding story continues. Events progress, narratives evolve, and the focus remains fixed on a city that has captured the attention of the world for generations. A city that continues to stand at the intersection of history and destiny, drawing the eyes of nations and the thoughts of millions. The developments we are witnessing are not isolated moments. They are part of an ongoing process. A process that is moving forward with increasing momentum, shaping the future in ways that are still unfolding, revealing layers that are only beginning to be understood, and drawing humanity into a deeper awareness of the times in which we are living, where every shift, every decision, every movement adds another piece to a picture that is becoming more defined with each passing moment, yet still holding elements that challenge our understanding and invite us to look closer, think deeper, and remain attentive to what is yet to come. As the intensity builds and the significance grows, and the world continues to move toward a point that feels both inevitable and profoundly important. And as the intensity continues to rise, there is an increasing sense that the lines between regional conflict and global consequence are becoming blurred. What happens in one place no longer stays contained. It reverberates outward, influencing decisions, shaping policies, and redefining priorities on a worldwide scale. Jerusalem once again sits at the heart of that ripple effect, not as a passive observer, but as an active catalyst in the unfolding dynamic. There is also a noticeable shift in how power is being exercised. Traditional structures that once maintained a certain balance are being tested, and in some cases, redefined. Emerging powers are asserting themselves, established powers are recalibrating their strategies, and alliances that once seemed unbreakable are showing signs of strain. In this environment, Jerusalem becomes more than a symbolic center. It becomes a strategic focal point in a rapidly changing global order. The conversations surrounding sovereignty are growing louder and more complex. Questions about borders, governance, and authority are no longer confined to diplomatic circles. They are being discussed openly, debated publicly, and scrutinized intensely. And at the center of many of these discussions is the question of who ultimately holds influence over Jerusalem. and what that influence represents in the broader context of international relations. What is particularly compelling is the way in which historical narratives are being revisited and, in some cases, reinterpreted. Events from the past are being brought back into the present conversation, not merely as points of reference, but as active components in shaping current decisions. This blending of past and present adds depth to the situation, but it also adds complexity, as differing interpretations lead to differing conclusions. There is also an undercurrent of anticipation that seems to be growing. It is not always openly expressed, but it can be felt in the tone of discussions, in the urgency of decisions, and in the heightened awareness of those who are closely observing these developments. It is as if there is an understanding that the current trajectory is leading towards something significant, something that may redefine the course of events in ways that are difficult to fully comprehend at this stage. At the same time, the role of global institutions is becoming increasingly prominent. Organizations that were established to maintain order and facilitate cooperation are now finding themselves at the center of critical decisions. Their actions, statements, and policies carry significant weight, influencing not only the immediate situation, but also the broader direction in which events are moving. However, with increased influence comes increased scrutiny. Decisions are being examined more closely, motives are being questioned, and outcomes are being evaluated in real time. This level of scrutiny adds pressure, not only on those making decisions, but also on the systems within which those decisions are made. In parallel, there is a growing recognition of the interconnected nature of modern challenges. Economic stability, political security, technological advancement, and social cohesion are all intertwined. A shift in one area can trigger a chain reaction in others. And within this intricate web, Jerusalem continues to serve as a focal point where many of these threads converge. There is also a human element that must not be overlooked. Behind every policy, every decision, every headline, there are individuals whose lives are directly impacted. Communities that experience the effects of these developments on a daily basis. Families who navigate the uncertainties that arise from shifting circumstances. This human dimension adds a layer of urgency and importance that goes beyond abstract discussions. As awareness of these realities grows, so does the desire for clarity. People are seeking to understand not only what is happening, but why it is happening and what it means for the future. This search for understanding is driving deeper engagement, prompting more questions, and encouraging a closer examination of the factors at play. There is also a growing emphasis on preparedness, not in a sense of fear, but in a sense of responsibility. Recognizing that the world is changing and that adapting to those changes requires awareness, insight, and thoughtful action. Preparation in this context becomes a way of engaging with reality rather than avoiding it. The pace at which events are unfolding continues to accelerate, and with that acceleration comes a narrowing window for reflection. Decisions that once allowed for extended deliberation are now being made under tighter timelines. This compression of time increases the stakes as the margin for error becomes smaller and the consequences of decisions become more immediate. In this environment, the importance of discernment becomes even more critical. The ability to distinguish between noise and signal, between temporary fluctuations and lasting shifts, becomes essential. And Jerusalem once again serves as a key indicator, a place where underlying trends become visible in ways that are difficult to ignore. There is also an evolving dynamic between public perception and political action. Public opinion, shaped by access to information and the speed at which it spreads, is playing a more significant role in influencing decisions. Leaders are increasingly aware of this, and their actions often reflect a balance between strategic considerations and public response. This dynamic creates both opportunities and challenges. On one hand, it allows for greater transparency and accountability. On the other hand, it can lead to decisions that are influenced by immediate reactions rather than long-term considerations. Navigating this balance is becoming increasingly complex, particularly in situations as sensitive as those involving Jerusalem. At the same time, the role of technology continues to expand. From communication platforms to data analysis tools, technology is shaping how information is shared, how decisions are made, and how events are interpreted. This technological influence adds another layer to the unfolding narrative, one that is constantly evolving and redefining the way we engage with the world. As these layers continue to build, the overall picture becomes more intricate. Each new development adds depth, each new perspective adds dimension, and each new decision contributes to a trajectory that is becoming increasingly defined. And at the center of this intricate picture remains Jerusalem, steady in its significance, yet dynamic in its influence. There is also a sense that the current moment is part of a larger continuum, that what we are witnessing now is connected to what has come before and what will follow. This continuity provides context, helping to frame current events within a broader narrative that extends beyond immediate circumstances. Understanding this continuity requires a willingness to look beyond the surface, to consider not only what is visible, but also what lies beneath. It requires an awareness of patterns, an attention to detail, and an openness to perspectives that may challenge existing assumptions. As the narrative continues to unfold, there is a growing recognition that we are participants in this moment, not just observers. Our understanding, our responses, and our actions all contribute to the broader context in which these events are taking place. This realization brings with it a sense of responsibility, to stay informed, to think critically, and to engage thoughtfully with the realities of our time. It is not enough to simply watch events unfold. There is a need to understand their significance and to consider their implications. Jerusalem, in this unfolding narrative, continues to serve as both a symbol and a signal of enduring significance and a signal of ongoing change. Its role is not static. It evolves as circumstances change, reflecting the broader dynamics at play. And as these dynamics continue to shift, the importance of maintaining perspective becomes increasingly clear. To see the larger picture while also understanding the details. To recognize the significance of individual events while also considering their place within the broader context. The unfolding reality is complex, multifaceted, and constantly evolving. It challenges assumptions, invites deeper inquiry, and demands a level of attention that goes beyond casual observation. And within this complexity, Jerusalem remains a central point of reference, a place where many of these elements converge and become visible. As the pace continues to increase and the stakes continue to rise, the need for clarity, awareness, and thoughtful engagement becomes more pronounced. The world is not standing still, and neither are the events surrounding Jerusalem. They are moving forward, developing, expanding, and revealing new dimensions with each passing moment, drawing more attention, raising more questions, and deepening the sense that we are witnessing something that is not only significant in the present, but will continue to shape the future in ways that are still unfolding, with layers that continue to emerge, connections that continue to form, and implications that continue to extend beyond what is immediately visible, inviting ongoing reflection, sustained attention, and a readiness to engage with what comes next as the narrative continues to build and the momentum continues to grow without pause or final resolution in sight. So now we stand at a moment that demands more than curiosity. It demands a response, not a passive acknowledgement, not a distant observation, but a personal reckoning with what is unfolding before our eyes. Because this is no longer just about a city, or politics, or even history. This is about understanding the times we are living in and recognizing that the world is not drifting aimlessly, but moving with purpose toward a defining moment. Jerusalem is not calling for attention, it is commanding it. It is standing as a witness that something far greater is in motion, something that cannot be silenced, delayed, or ignored. The patterns are too precise, the convergence too undeniable, the urgency too strong to dismiss. And if we are honest, deep within, there is a realization that what we are seeing is not ordinary. It is a signal, a warning, and an invitation all at once. The question is no longer whether these things matter. The question is whether we are willing to open our eyes and truly see. Because history has shown that the greatest moments are often missed, not because they were hidden, but because people chose not to recognize them. And this moment, right now, is one that demands recognition. There is a line being drawn, not in the sand, but in awareness. A distinction between those who remain indifferent and those who choose to understand. Between those who dismiss the significance of what is happening and those who recognize that time itself feels different, compressed, accelerated, purposeful. And if time is indeed moving faster than we realize, then the way we live, the way we think, and the way we respond must change. Complacency is no longer an option. Distraction is no longer harmless, because moments like these are not repeated. They are defining, shaping, irreversible. This is not about fear. It is about clarity. It is about standing in the middle of uncertainty with a sense of awareness that cuts through confusion. It is about recognizing that while the world may seem chaotic, there is a deeper order unfolding, one that is bringing everything into alignment exactly as it was meant to be. Jerusalem stands as proof that nothing is slushai, nothing is accidental. Every development, every shift, every tension is part of a larger picture that is becoming clearer with every passing day. And as that picture sharpens, so does the responsibility to respond with wisdom, with intention, and with purpose. Because in the end, it will not matter how much information we had access to or how many headlines we read. What will matter is whether we understood the significance of the moment and chose to act accordingly. Whether we allowed ourselves to remain asleep to the reality around us, or whether we awaken to it and embrace the weight of what it means. The world is watching Jerusalem, but the greater question is, are we watching with understanding or merely with curiosity? Because this moment is not just unfolding around us. It is confronting us. It is asking us to decide where we stand, what we believe, and how we will respond as the days ahead continue to reveal what has long been set in motion. And as everything continues to accelerate, as the noise grows louder and the stakes rise higher, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. This is not a time to look away. This is a time to look closer, to think deeper, and to recognize that we are standing on the edge of something that will define not only the future of nations, but the awareness of an entire generation, calling each one of us to rise above indifference and step into a clarity that refuses to be shaken. Because the moment is here, the signal is clear, and what comes next will not wait for anyone to be ready.